Hey guys, welcome to our video. As promised, I am making my own video on this. This is mainly for you cheerleaders who are getting ready to kick butt in Disney, or if you're watching this after, have won the national championship. Um, so what I decided to do, instead of doing one video on the inverse sine, one video on inverse cosine, one video on inverse tangent, I decided to just go ahead and lump them all together. So if this seems a little long and you want to pause it after sine and take care of that, pretend that's one video, fine. If you want to then pause it after cosine, say that's a second video, fine, and you get the picture. So I don't have a problem with that. I don't have a problem if you run through it all at once. As I am making this video, which is about 9:17 on Thursday, February 5th, in the PM, I have graded half of the tests. And when I say half of the test, I mean half of everybody's test. So I don't have anybody's test 100% graded, but I have everybody's test half graded. And I have to say, so far, I am fairly pleased. I hope that stays the same after I get to the last page, but we shall see. So anyway, what we're going to go ahead and do is we're going to go ahead and start talking about finding the exact value of an inverse sine function. And what we need to do is we need to first take a look at this chart we have right here. Okay? Ignore everything else on that page. We just want to look at that chart. Okay? And this chart takes us from negative pi over 2 to pi over 2. When we deal with an inverse sine function, we only want to take a look at the numbers between negative pi over 2 and pi over 2. After that, they just keep repeating. So, in order to keep from confusion, we just want to look at from negative pi over 2 to pi over 2. So, what happens is we have a value, an example. Let's say we want to find the exact value of sine inverse of negative 1/2. Okay, so what we have to do with this, and I'm going to do the work over here on this side, is we have our angle, theta, equaling sine inverse of negative 1/2. Okay, now, we don't like this sine inverse. Okay, we want to get rid of that. Okay, so what we have to do is we have to multiply by sine on both the left side and the right side, because if we multiply the left side and the right side by sine, the sine and sine inverse actually kill each other off. So we are left with sine theta equaling negative 1/2. Okay, so what we need to do is we need to go back and we need to look at our chart. Okay, so excuse me. So once again, we have negative 1/2. So we come over here to our chart, look for negative 1/2, which is right here. And so we find that theta is equal to negative pi over 6. I apologize for the pause. So we find negative 1/2 is equal to negative pi over 6. So we find that our sine inverse of negative 1/2 is equal to negative pi over 6. And there is our answer. Pretty straightforward. We're going to try another example. I know it drives you girls nuts if I leave a dot anywhere. So, you know what? I'm going to leave couple. No, I'm just joking. So, I have everything erased. I'm going to go ahead and get my space to work. And now, instead of the letter A, we are looking at B, which is sine inverse of square root of 2 over 2. So once again, we are going to set theta equal to sine inverse of square root of 2 over 2. Multiply the left side and the right side by sine to kill that off. So sine theta is square root of 2 over 2. Once again, we look at our chart, and instead of negative 1/2, we are looking at the square root of 2 over 2, which is here. So our value for theta, or when we have theta, is pi over 4. So once again, didn't want to write that, sine inverse of square root of 2 over 2 is equal to, once again, doubling, tripling, quadrupling, checking myself, pi over 4. Okay, so the next, I guess I don't have any examples for you to do, so I'm going to go ahead and give you a third one to do. I want you to find sine inverse of negative 1. Okay, so what I want you to do is I want you to pause the video, give it a shot, and then when we come back, after you give it a shot, once again, I'll give you the answer and we'll walk through it. Okay, so hopefully you had enough time to work on that. The answer is negative pi over 2. So what we want to do is we want to work it out. So theta is equal to sine inverse of negative 1. So sine theta is equal to negative 1. We go back, we look at our chart, and instead of here, we are looking at negative 1, which ends up being negative pi over 2, which is what our answer is here. So sine inverse of negative 1 is negative pi over 2. Okay? Simple, straightforward. That's the end of finding the exact values of sine inverse. Next we want to do is we want to use a calculator to find inverse sine of 1/3. Now, we don't have on our chart a 1/3. Okay, we don't. We have square root of 3 over 2, and we have negative 1/2, but we do not have a third, or as you see in letter B, negative 1/4. So what we're going to have to do is we're going to have to use our calculator to estimate this. Okay, so what we end up doing is we just type in the calculator sine inverse, which if you look at your calculator, it's the second button followed by the sine button. That will give you this. Please, 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 please do not punch in sine with the -1 exponent. Okay? This button is already set up. As long as you hit second sine. Okay? This is already set up for you. So we have the sine inverse of 1/3. Punch that in your calculator, and you should end up with approximately 0.34. This can be done easily on a TI-30 as well as the TI-84 plus C graphing calculator, big honkin' thing. So we have done this for sine inverse of 1/3. What I want you to do is do letter B all by yourself, and go ahead and do it in your calculator. Pause the video, do it, then come back. We'll walk through it. Okay, guys. So you've had a chance to do this on your calculator, and some of you will have ended up with sine inverse of -1/4 equaling -0.25, which is the correct answer. Some of you, however, will not. Okay? In order to get this answer, we are dealing with radians. So make sure the mode on your calculator is in radians. If it's not, change it, try the problem again. You should end up with the correct answer. And ladies, and if there's any gentlemen watching, this has been it for finding inverse sine. If you want to continue watching, I will be discussing inverse cosine next. If you want to pause it, feel that 12 minutes of a video is long enough, then go ahead and pause it. Just make sure you start back up where you left off, and we'll go over cosine inverse. Thank you and have a great day. Okay, guys, welcome back. If you are continuing watching, then I never left you. Those who paused it, then came back, I hope that you're well rested, ready to go. And what we're going to do today is we're going to talk about inverse cosine. Okay, inverse cosine is slightly different than inverse sine, where instead of dealing with -pi/2 to pi/2, we are now dealing with 0 to pi. Okay, and if you look, we have our chart to the left. Okay, and I guess there's no other way to get going than just start on our first problem. So what we want to do is we want to first find the exact value of cosine inverse of -2 square root of 2 over 2. Okay, so how we find the inverse of cosine is very similar to what we did with inverse of sine. Okay, we say that our angle theta is equal to cosine inverse of -square root of 2 over 2. Okay, so once again, we have to move our cosine inverse. Okay, so we have to get rid of that, so we multiply the left side and the right side by cosine. That kills those off effectively. So then we have cosine theta equaling -square root of 2 over 2. So we look at our table and we find that -square root of 2 over 2 is right here, and that equals 3 pi over 4. So So cosine inverse of negative square root of 2 over 2, just making sure I write down the exact thing that I need to, is equal to 3 pi over 4. I hope this has not been rocket science. So based on that, it is very similar to what we did for sine. I want you to go ahead and try letter B on your own with cosine inverse of negative 1. Pause the video, give it a shot, we'll come back. Okay, so I hope you've had time to work on it. And once again, we say theta is equal to cosine inverse of negative 1. Multiply the left side and the right side by cosine. You end up with cosine theta is equal to negative 1. We take a look at our chart, and we find negative 1 down here at the bottom, which is equal to pi. So cosine inverse of negative 1 equals pi. I hope that's what you found on the work, and that's all we need to show in order to find the exact value of cosine inverse. Okay, so now we get to talk about the calculator way of finding the value of cosine inverse. And once again, none of these values will be on our chart. If they are on our chart, we want to find the exact values. If they're not on our chart, we want to find the approximate answers. Okay? And using a calculator is the exact same as inverse sine. So if you have trouble remembering how to figure out the calculator for inverse sine, I would suggest you rewind this video, find out how to use a calculator for inverse sine, and it's the exact same steps for inverse cosine. And with that is the end of finding inverse cosine. I once again thank you for your time and patience. If you wish to pause the video, now you may. If you wish to continue on to tangent, let's get going. So now we're looking at inverse tangent. Welcome back, those of you who decided to pause and then come back. Those of you who have been with me from the beginning, sorry for the repetition. Here, with inverse tangent, it is very, 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 very similar to sine tangent or inverse sine in the fact that we have still negative pi over 2 to pi over 2. Okay? Now, a little bit different here is if we end up with negative pi over 2 or pi over 2, we end up with an undefined answer. So just keep that in mind as we go through our examples. So let's go ahead and start on our first example. For letter A, we want to find the exact value of tan inverse of negative 1. So once again, we say our angle theta is equal to tan inverse of negative 1. Then, once again, we multiply both the left and the right side by tan. Kills that off. So tan theta is equal to negative 1. We go back, look at our chart. We find negative 1, and we find the answer is negative pi over 4. So tan inverse of negative 1 is negative pi over 4. Okay? Think you got what it takes? Try letter B. Alright, so I hope you've had time to try letter B. And we are going to give it a shot. Now, once again, we have theta equaling tan inverse of negative square root of 3. Multiply the left side and the right side by tan. We end up with tan theta is equal to negative square root of 3. We look at our chart. Negative square root of 3 is the one above the one that we have boxed currently. So negative pi over 3. So tan inverse of negative square root of 3 is, once again, negative pi over 3. I hope you got that answer correct. Okay? So next, I'm going to try an equation. Okay? Take what we've learned, give this equation a shot. Go ahead and pause the video. When you feel as though you have the answer, go ahead and resume the video, and I will walk through step by step how to solve this. And trust me, it's not that bad. Okay, guys, so I hope you've had a chance to work this out. And let's go ahead and just walk through this, okay? First things first, we want the sine inverse of x all by itself. So what we need to do is we need to divide by 3. So now we have sine inverse x equaling pi over 3. Okay? Now, once again, we do not want this sine inverse, so we multiply left side and right side by sine. So we end up with x equaling sine of pi over 3. Okay? Now, if you go back to the very beginning where we were talking about sine of pi over 3 in our chart, okay? Pi over 3 in the sine chart, you have to look at the other one, and let me flip back to where we're talking. Okay? Right here we have sine of pi over 3, which ends up being the square root of 3 over 2. So, we say x equals square root of 3 over 2. And there's your answer. Okay? Ladies and maybe gentlemen, I really appreciate your time and patience with this video. Sorry for the pauses as well. And ladies, good luck in Disney World. Maybe I'll give this smiley face some Mickey ears. It's terrible. That's why I'm a math teacher, not an artist. Good luck, MHS cheerleaders. And thank you for your time and patience.